In our last session, we met Jehovah Sidkenu, the God of righteousness, who to a nation who were being unrighteous, unfaithful, and as a result being carried off into exile as a result of losing that sense of God's presence, God reveals himself as righteous to a nation that's not being righteous. We saw that through the eyes of Jeremiah, who was a prophet in Jerusalem, saying to the people who were about to be carried off what was going to happen. And a contemporary of Jeremiah at the time was a prophet called Ezekiel. He was carried off into exile in the first wave, probably around 605 BC, and he was in the Babylonian capital. And there, as a man of God, was sitting by a river when he has an encounter with God where he sees this vision of the presence of God. And God reveals to him through a sequence of prophetic visions and calls Ezekiel to act out through role play, through prophetic acts, as well as through his sort of speaking, and to reveal something new of the character of God. Here are the people in exile, and Ezekiel is getting a picture that the presence of God, represented by the temple, represented by the place of God's meeting with people, he sees the presence leave, and he recognizes that the nation have come under that sense of losing the covering of God, losing Jehovah Nissi, the banner. They've lost the covering of God and his presence with his people, and they're now got to live with the consequences. But towards the end of the book, he has a fresh vision, and he sees this presence of God returning, and a new vision of a temple, a new picture of the presence of God being with people, the presence of God returning. And God reveals himself at this moment as Jehovah Shammah, the God who is here, the God who is present. I think it would be very easy to lose the significance of this encounter if we skim over it too quickly. But here is a nation in exile, away from everything familiar to them, locked up, shut away, and suffering, and into that sense of the pain, the suffering, the loss of hope. God speaks and says, I am here, I am present with you again. It also speaks to that sense of restoring the presence of God, that where God's people have been unfaithful and where people have been separated from God, God will return and his presence will return. And that's the beauty of the book of Ezekiel and this encounter that he has of looking to the God who wants to return his presence, to be with his people and to his people to know, again, the covering and the presence of the God who is present. This teaches us a few things about the character and the nature of God. First of all, it speaks to the fact that God is here with us. God is Emmanuel, the God who is here. And we sing about Emmanuel at Christmas when we think of Jesus coming. We think of God being present with his people, God incarnate, come to have that relationship. And as Jesus returns to heaven, he promises to send the Holy Spirit to be with us. So that sense of the God of the Old Testament saying, I am present with you, continues in the New Testament as God says, I will continue to be present with you through my Holy Spirit. The importance of Jehovah Shammah is also seen in the second sort of aspect, and that is it points to the unique relationship that God has with us. You see, most religions chase after trying to find God, but what makes Christianity different to every other religion is that God has come and revealed himself and come and been present with his people. He's come as Jesus to give us a unique relationship. And Jehovah Shammah speaks of us being able to know God in the present, in the here and now. When Jesus returned to heaven, one of the last things he gave us was the Great Commission, where he called us to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them everything that he had said. And the thing that we often miss out is the last bit of that says, I promise to be with you even to the end of the age. As Christians today, we not only need to know Jehovah Shammah, but we need to be people of the presence. We need to live as people who know and experience and witness the presence of God in the reality of the everyday today. We live in a hurting, messy, mucky world who need to know a God who is present with them in the mess to help them find a new way.